The morning my brother was supposed to say, "I do," I learned what people mean when they talk about a heart cracking clean in two. The hotel gleamed like a fairy tale. 5 stars of white satin ribbons, fresh flowers in glass vases, and chandeliers scattering light like handfuls of diamonds. Soft strings floated through the air. Blessings, laughter, and camera shutters blended into a picture-perfect soundtrack. It was Julian's day. He looked flawless in a tux, tall and steady, the kind of man who had protected me since we were kids. After our parents died, he became my anchor, my shield, my whole world. Seeing him smile beside Eliza, sweet, delicate, always gentle, I thought, finally. Our tiny family is safe and complete. I was Simone Rivers, the proud sister, the happy wife. My husband, Miles Sterling, every inch the golden boy architect, stood with his arm around my waist, smelling like cedar and aftershave. He squeezed my hand. "Your brother looks incredible," he murmured. "And Eliza, a dream. They're perfect together." I leaned into him and let that warm, steady feeling wash over me. 5 years of marriage had taught me I was lucky. He listened. He remembered the small things. He carried umbrellas and brought me tea and swore I was his home. When the coordinator called for the wedding party to gather, I turned to find Miles so we could grab a quick photo with the couple. He wasn't beside me. I scanned the ballroom. Nothing. No familiar broad shoulders. No easy smile. Probably stepped out for a call, I told myself, and headed toward the quieter end of the hall, where a little balcony overlooked the gardens. It was the kind of tucked-away spot you choose when you want to breathe. Before I reached the door, a breathy laugh slipped through the gap in the glass. A woman's whisper, familiar. My steps slowed. My heartbeat didn't, it lurched and hammered. I edged closer and looked through the narrow opening. Time stopped. My husband's hands were on the bride's waist. His mouth was on her mouth. Eliza's white dress glowed even in the dim light, the hem kissing the tile. The veil pooled like soft clouds, and there they were, tangled up in each other, in the shadows, at my brother's wedding. Sound drained out of the world. Everything narrowed to a ringing in my ears and the sharp taste of metal on my tongue. I pressed my palm to the cool wall because my knees buckled. Nausea swelled. Words floated out from the balcony, cruel and clean and unforgettable. "You're bold," Eliza whispered, coy. "Right here, right now. What's there to fear?" Miles scoffed, a laugh I'd never heard from him. Arrogant, ugly. "Look at that family, puppets, and Julian? A lovesick fool. We've got this under control. Puppets. Fool." He was talking about us. I dug my nails into my palms and barely felt the sting. Eliza's tone flickered. "I'm still nervous. If it all blows up, I don't want to live with you and your wife." "You don't have to be jealous of her," Miles said, voice low. "I married her for the label. Respectable family. She's a baby machine and a shield. Once there's a kid, I'll find a way to move her out of the picture. Then Julian's fortune is ours. You'll have everything you want, my love." My love. The words hit like lightning. In a single breath, 5 years burned down to ash. I turned away and walked because moving was the only thing my body remembered how to do. The hallway warped around me. Tears went hot and fast, but my voice stayed trapped in my throat. Every step was syrup. I collided with a shoulder. Solid, familiar. Julian. He took in my face, the smeared mascara, the shaking hands, and his expression barely moved. One crease between his brows. "Simone, what happened?" The moment I heard his voice, the dam split. I clutched him like a child, the sobs ripping through me in a way that frightened me, because pain that big doesn't sound human. The words came out in pieces, but they came. The balcony, Miles, Eliza, the kiss, the plan, the insults, the promise to strip our family bare. I braced for the explosion. Julian had a temper he kept leashed for the boardroom, decisive, final. I thought he'd storm down the hall, tear the doors open, annihilate the wedding, annihilate them. Instead, he held me and patted my back and let the storm pass. When my crying slowed to hiccups, He lifted my chin and wiped my cheeks with the gentleness of the boy who used to tie my shoes. His eyes were steady. Not shocked, not angry. Something colder, something like resolve carved from stone. He gave me a small private wink only we ever used. "It's okay," he murmured close to my ear. "The main act is about to begin." The words stunned me quiet. The main act? My brother, betrayed by his fiancée on his wedding day, was calm. He laced his fingers with mine and pulled me into the groom's waiting room, locked the door, and finally let the mask slip. The air in there was thick with balloons and white ribbons and a tension that hummed against my skin. "Listen carefully," he said. The warmth in his face cooled to the steel I'd seen when he negotiated deals that moved markets. "I've known for a while." The floor tilted. "What?" "3 months ago," Julian said, "Eliza started poking at the Rivers Group's books. Too curious. And Miles, your husband, couldn't hide the way his eyes followed her. I hired a private investigator. Photos on his phone. Eliza and Miles on secret dates. Wire transfers into Eliza's account from a source that smelled like rot. Emails with a plan laid out like a heist script. Seduce the groom. Marry into the family. Use the sister's husband, Miles, to leak internal data. After the wedding, maneuver the project so Miles could help manage, then siphon money into phantom debts, gut the company our parents built, and hand the carcass to a competitor. I stared unblinking as anger roared up and eclipsed grief. They weren't only destroying my marriage. They were preparing to raise my parents' legacy. Why not stop it? I choked out. Why go through with tonight? If I called it off, we'd catch 2 small fish, Julian said. The one pulling the strings would stay deep. We needed evidence. We needed him. He already had a counterplan. Critical assets quietly moved into a trust. Hot projects swapped for decoys. Discreet recorders and micro cameras planted everywhere the key players liked to whisper. The net was ready. He just needed them to thrash. His gaze softened. Now I need you. They won't suspect you. Keep crying. Play devastated. Let them think you're broken. The better you act, the safer we all are. Grief burned like acid. But something in me shifted. The helplessness hardened into purpose. I can do it, I said, and I meant it. A knock. The coordinator's voice through the door. It was time. Julian straightened his bow tie and smiled the kind of smile that keeps rooms calm. Let's go, little sister. Curtain up, we stepped into the lights. Across the room, Miles had his arm draped around Eliza's waist as if the balcony never happened. He rushed over with worry pinned to his face like a boutonniere. Simone, where were you? I've been looking everywhere. I let my eyes stay swollen and watery and said nothing. He faltered. The music swelled. The MC announced the bride and groom. Applause like thunder. Julian took Eliza's hand and walked down an aisle carpeted in white roses. Under the stage lights, anyone would have sworn they were a storybook couple. He, still smiling. She, still fluttering her lashes like innocence itself. I sat in the front row. Miles murmured sweet things at my ear. I leaned into him the way a tired wife would and bit down on the nausea. Vows were minutes away when a voice cut the room clean in half. Hold on, every head turned. A well-dressed woman, mid-40s, stood with an older man at her side. Rage and heartbreak twisted together on her face. Eliza blanched at the sight of her. Do you recognize me? The woman asked, climbing onto the stage. I'm the mother of the man you promised to marry. 5 years together, an engagement. And then you vanished and ran toward a fatter wallet. Gasps. Photos spilled across the floor. Eliza on cozy dates with a young man. Eliza at an engagement party. Eliza smiling in ways that didn't look borrowed. The crowd shifted from adoration to suspicion so fast the air cooled. Eliza stammered, reaching for Julian's hand. He crossed his arms and watched her with a face I barely recognized. Polite, distant, done. That was Act 1. Eliza swayed and collapsed into a delicate faint. Her relatives scrambled, fanning, fussing, buying time. Julian took the microphone from the stunned MC. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, voice smooth, carrying to the corners. I'm sorry you had to see this, but truth has a way of finding light. Miss Stone. he added softly toward Eliza's fluttering lids. We're ending the farce now. He turned, scanning the crowd as if he were searching for a friend, and found Miles. I'd like to invite a special guest to the stage, Julian announced, smiling wide. My brother-in-law, the talented architect, Miles Sterling. The spotlight swung. Miles jolted beside me. His hand went cold. Why would he? Go on, I whispered, letting my voice wobble like a woman still stunned. Maybe he wants you to share the secret to a happy marriage. He flinched and trudged up the steps, each footfall loud to my ears. Julian draped an easy arm around his shoulders and faced the audience. Isn't he remarkable? Smart, generous, a devoted husband who loves my sister. Miles' laugh came out thin, sweat bloomed under his collar, and perhaps, Julian continued lightly, so perfect that other women can't help but love him too. Isn't that right, my dear bride? Eliza's eyes snapped open. Misunderstanding, Miles croaked. This is all a... Julian signaled. The giant screens that had been looping candlelit videos of the happy couple went black, then sputtered to life. A hidden camera's angle. The balcony. My husband. The bride. Kissing like they were starving. The audio swept the room. Every sneer. Every plan. Every ugly word. He married her to fool the world. She's a baby machine. Julian is a lovesick idiot. The room erupted. Shouts. Insults. Gasps that turned to hot, righteous anger. Eliza jumped to her feet, shaking. Miles tried to backpedal. It's fake. It's... someone edited... His voice drowned in the roar. Julian's face edged toward grief, then sharpened back to steel. He lifted the mic again. That is who they are. But this is only the surface. He pulled a bundle of papers from his jacket and held them up. What they want isn't love. It's this. Plans. Money. Access. His gaze cut to a VIP row, where a man in a gray suit suddenly found the floor fascinating, and it leads to someone who prefers the shadows. Cameras swung. People whispered. The man stood, adjusted his tie. Tried to slip out. Julian's voice lassoed him. Mr. Harrison, why rush off? The best part is moments away. I felt the name like ice in my veins. Ricardo Harrison, head of Golden Crest Group. The same man who had once been my father's colleague. The same man whose ruthless competition had pushed our father to an early grave. Two plainclothes detectives appeared at his elbows as if they grew from the floor. He sat back down, face slick. The rest moved like dominoes. Julian hinted at a larger scheme. Documents flashed. Illicit transfers. Promises made to Eliza. Promotions dangled for Miles. The cops watched without blinking. The crowd went from shock to fury, to a hush that thrummed with attention. Then chaos lit a match. Eliza snatched a jeweled hairpin, lunged, and aimed it straight at my face. For a second I froze, mind blank. At the last instant, a body moved, a blur, and the pin tore across a shoulder instead of my skin. Miles. He grunted, blood blooming through white cotton. Security swarmed. Eliza shook, went limp, and was carried away. My brother steadied me, then turned to the room. His voice dropped. The most injured person here isn't me. It's my sister, Simone. He placed a hand over his heart. I should have protected her sooner. Applause rose, raw, human, not for a wedding, but for a strange kind of justice. The lights dimmed. Guests drifted out murmuring, phones buzzing with headlines that would soon detonate across the city. When the hall emptied, only the echo of it all remained. Balloons bobbing gently, rose petals crushed under 100 shoes. I stood beside Julian in the quiet and asked the question that had been burning holes in my chest. How did you know so much? The money. The plan. Mr. Harrison, how? He looked at the stage where hours earlier he would have kissed a bride. A weary smile pulled at his mouth. Because I wasn't the only one who wanted him exposed. That was when he told me the part that made the rest of the night click into place like the final piece of a lock. Years ago, our father had been partners with Harrison before Harrison turned cunning into a career. After that betrayal, Julian had never stopped digging. He'd tracked rumors, stored receipts, followed whispers through back rooms and boardrooms. And when Eliza appeared, too perfect, too eager to discuss the project's golden crest was circling, he knew the past was knocking again, dressed in silk. He hadn't expected Miles to be part of it. That discovery cut him, he admitted, because it meant I was right in the crosshairs. But you, he said softly, you kept your head. You turned their plan against them. Miles was treated for the shallow gash and taken into custody for questioning. Mr. Harrison was escorted out under a storm of cameras. Eliza's faint courage dissolved into a police report. The wedding was over, but the story wasn't. I went home, stared at a bedroom that no longer felt like mine, and filed for divorce as soon as the sun came up. Paperwork processed fast when videos do the talking. Our one shared asset, the house, went on the market. I didn't want a single object that could keep that ghost alive. The case that followed shook the business pages. Golden Crest executives were arrested for fraud, embezzlement, and industrial espionage. Eliza suffered a breakdown. Mr. Harrison's long reach finally met a wall he couldn't climb, and while Miles had stepped in front of a hairpin for me, an act that looked a lot like a flicker of a soul, he still faced the consequences of the choices that came before it. I didn't hate him. I couldn't love him. Some doors, once closed, don't open again. When the dust settled and the reporters found a new storm to chase, I packed a small suitcase and flew to the Bahamas alone. I didn't book tours or chase sunsets. I walked beaches, sat in quiet cafes, read, wrote. Let the ocean comb the knots out of my mind. One cool afternoon, a familiar voice said, "Small world, huh?" I looked up. The detective from that night, out of uniform, in a khaki jacket and a smile that made him look suddenly, disarmingly young. "Damien," he said, offering a hand like we were meeting for the first time on gentler ground. I told him I was just finishing notes for a project. He asked if he could sit. The cafe was full. The seat was empty. The universe apparently had opinions. We talked about nothing and then about everything. Why he'd transferred to a quieter post. Why I'd needed air that didn't smell like newspapers. He didn't ask me to relive the balcony. He didn't push. He listened. When he finally glanced at his watch and stood, he hesitated. "I'm hiking this weekend," he said. "If you've never tried it, you should. The air up there clears the heavy stuff." I don't know why I said yes. Maybe because his voice sounded like a path. Maybe because my feet were tired of not moving. We climbed a green ridge 2 days later. It smelled like pine and clean beginnings. We ate at a hole-in-the-wall place afterward and talked until the lights blinked tiredly at us to leave. He was easy to be with, kind without trying, steady in a way that didn't ask me to disappear to keep the peace. Feelings didn't crash in. They floated up. One night by a lake, he took my hand and said, "If you let me, I'd like to help write the next chapter. One with quiet mornings and a lot of laughing." I didn't have a speech ready. I just nodded and let the tears that finally didn't burn fall. 2 years later, our daughter Skylar barreled down the hallway in a princess dress yelling, "Mom, hurry! Dad and Uncle Julian are waiting." We had rings. We had routines. We had a life that felt like it had been handed back to me, better stitched than before. Julian had a family of his own and a lighter smile. The Rivers Group was thriving again, this time with ethics that could survive any boardroom storm. On a drive past the state prison, I thought about the people paying debts inside. Word was that Miles might earn an early release for good behavior. Eliza was in a psychiatric facility, finally being treated for the collapse that followed her choices. Mr. Harrison, old and sick, had folded into the system he'd outsmarted for too long. Hatred had emptied out of me somewhere along the way, rinsed away by new joys. In its place, I found space for something quieter, acceptance. Maybe even a little forgiveness around the edges where it didn't cost me anything. At the grand opening of our new Atlanta branch, someone sent a bouquet of white roses with no name attached. The card said, in an elegant hand I couldn't place, "Congratulations. Be very happy." I kept it because something about it felt like a blessing left on a windowsill. Later, a small bracelet, white gold with a lotus charm, arrived for Skylar's birthday with a note. "Happy birthday to our little girl," from her grandmother. My heart stuttered. The handwriting matched the roses card exactly. My mother had been gone for years. Damien's mother wasn't the type to choose lotus pendants or write with such delicate loops. And there, as quietly as an envelope sliding under a door, a mystery stepped into our house and sat down. I told myself it was a coincidence. It wasn't. A black sedan showed up in my rear view a few times and then vanished into traffic. A woman in a sun hat watched Skylar and me at the park, then hurried away when I turned. Damien checked our cameras and put on his calm voice, the one he used at scenes where emotions ran too hot. "We'll look into it," he promised. "We're cautious, but we won't be afraid." Days passed. No answers. So I did what grief had taught me to do. I went looking for the truth myself. I took leave, drove to the small town where Julian and I had grown up, climbed into the attic of our old house, and dug through time. Dusty trunks, faded photos, my mother's smile, my father's arm around us at birthdays. Nothing unusual, until I found a little wooden box at the bottom of a chest with a rusty padlock that finally gave under stubborn fingers. Inside, a bundle of letters tied with a purple ribbon, the paper gone soft with years. The handwriting was delicate, European, and unmistakably the same as the notes that had found me. The first line, "My dear Sister Carla." My breath stalled. Sister Carla, that was my mother's name. The letter spoke of a car explosion, a life saved, a debt that could never be paid, gifts sent for 2 children. Signed, Adele. Later letters came from Paris, then Geneva. They were layered with loneliness and gratitude. The last one, 5 years old and shaky, included a tiny brass key and a confession that made my hands go numb. I left my 2 children. I live as a ghost because I had to. The key opens a safe deposit box in Geneva. When they are grown, let them have what I could not give. Tell them their mother watched from far away and loved them always. Forgive me, Adele. Something in me tilted and clicked. A woman who called herself grandmother. A handwriting that matched. A key to a Swiss vault. The certainty I'd always had about who we were cracked, and beneath it, a hidden layer glinted like something buried too deep for daylight. I drove back to the city with the letters and put them on Julian's desk. He read in silence, the color draining from his face. "No," he whispered. "It can't be. Our mother is—" He caught himself, looked at the handwriting, and understood the same terrible, beautiful possibility I did. If Adele was who I thought she was, then the story of our family was bigger and darker than we had known. And the enemy at the center was a man we already recognized. The night after I found the letters, sleep became a stranger. The house was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that hums behind your ears until you start to imagine things breathing in it. Damien was asleep beside me, but I couldn't stop hearing my mother's voice in the back of my mind, warm and familiar, saying my name the way she used to when I was little. Only now that voice came from those pages. My dear Sister Carla. I must have read that line 100 times. I'd grown up believing my mother's only sister had died in a fire before I was born. But this letter wasn't written by a ghost. It was written by someone alive. Someone who knew exactly who we were. Someone who had been watching. At 2 a.m., I got out of bed and sat at the kitchen table, the stack of letters glowing under the pendant light. The last envelope was sealed with wax. A trembling handprint smudged it. Inside, not just a note, but a small black and white photograph. 2 women. Young, smiling, standing in front of a European embassy gate. One was my mother, no doubt. The other, the same face, older now, in my memory from the news that year. A profile photo from a business magazine cover. Adele Moreau, CEO of Moreau Holdings, a discreet conglomerate known for its philanthropic fronts and quiet control of smaller companies worldwide. She'd vanished 5 years ago after a health crisis, and rumors said she'd died abroad. But my gut told me otherwise. I showed Julian the next morning. He stared at the photo like it was something poisonous. This woman, he said, voice tight, was Harrison's silent partner. I blinked. What? He nodded slowly. We suspected he had backing. Foreign capital with influence big enough to move government contracts. Moreau was rumored to fund some of his projects. He looked at the signature on the letter again, then met my eyes. If this is real, Simone, this woman isn't just our mother's sister. She's the one who financed the man who destroyed our father. The realization hit like a cold wave. The enemy wasn't just a corporate villain. She was family. Julian's instincts kicked into gear immediately. He ordered a full background sweep through his private security team. Damien, ever the detective, joined in quietly, running old records from the embassy archives and tracing the name Adele Moreau back to a woman who'd changed identities multiple times since the 1980s. A week later, we gathered around Julian's study table, which was covered in files and photographs. Damien connected the dots out loud, pacing like he was narrating a crime scene. She was born Adele Baptiste in Port-au-Prince, he began. Moved to France at 22 after a marriage that fell apart. Became Adele Moreau after her second husband died in an accident. She built Moreau Holdings from his insurance payout and a network of shell corporations. 10 years later, she appears at a gala in Zurich, the same year Carla Rivers, your mother, reportedly dies in a car explosion. He paused. Except there's no death certificate on record for Carla Rivers. None. Only a police report of a burned vehicle registered to her name. Body never confirmed. My stomach dropped. Are you saying she... I'm saying it's possible, Damien interrupted softly. That your mother didn't die. That she became Adele Moreau. Julian slammed a fist on the table. No, that's impossible. She loved us. She would never leave us. But I saw the tremor in his hand. The tiny, fragile hope he couldn't kill. We sat in silence until I spoke. What if she didn't leave us by choice? The room shifted. Because now the pieces that hadn't fit suddenly started to form a picture. The letters, the secrecy, the money trails, the cars that followed me, the bracelet for Skylar. All of it pointed not to a monster, but to someone who'd been watching from the shadows. Protecting us. Trying, maybe, to fix what she'd broken. That same week, a courier arrived at my office. No return address. Inside the package, a single object, an old brass key identical to the one from the letter. Attached was a note that read, "If you want answers, come alone. Geneva, Rue des Trois Lys, Bank Vault 27B, December 14th, 9 a.m. No signature. No explanation. Julian forbade it immediately. You're not going, he said. It's a trap. If she's alive, she's hiding for a reason. And if she's not, someone's pretending to be her. Either way, it's dangerous. But danger had been part of my life for years now, and silence was worse. I need to know, I said simply. Damien looked between us, reading both faces like maps. If you go, he said, you don't go alone. The night before the flight, I tucked Skylar into bed, brushed her hair back, and kissed her forehead. She looked up at me with those steady brown eyes that had survived the storm I'd dragged us through. Mom, she whispered, are you going somewhere? Just for a few days, baby. Are you scared? A pause. A little. She reached for my hand. Then be brave for both of us. It was something I used to tell her when the nightmares came. Hearing it from her tiny voice made my throat ache. Geneva was snow and silence and cathedrals that looked older than memory. Damien and I checked into separate hotels. The plan was simple. I'd enter the bank. He'd stay close, watching from a distance. At 8:55 a.m., I stood in front of a marble counter, holding the brass key in a hand that trembled more than I wanted to admit. Vault 27B, I told the clerk. He nodded and led me to a private elevator. Each floor we passed made my heartbeat climb higher. The door opened to a sterile corridor lined with vault doors. When mine clicked open, The light inside spilled over a small wooden box, almost identical to the one from our attic. I lifted the lid. Inside were 2 passports, one with my mother's face labeled Carla Rivers, and another with the same face, older, named Adele Moreau, a ring I hadn't seen since childhood, my mother's gold band with the tiny engraving. Always come home, and an envelope with my name written in the same looping hand as before. My dearest Simone, if you are reading this, then my secrets have reached you sooner than I hoped. You deserve the truth, all of it. I did not die in that car. I was meant to. Harrison's men planted the bomb when I discovered what they were doing with your father's company. I survived because someone pulled me out before it exploded. His name was Mark Moreau. He saved my life and gave me a new one. I built an empire in his name, not for power, but for protection. I have been fighting Harrison's network from the shadows ever since. When he died, I thought the war was over, but he had children. Eliza Stone is one of them. And the man who married you, Miles, was chosen for you long before you met him. Forgive me. My love, you were the key they needed to reach your brother's company, and I was too far to stop them without exposing you. But I can stop what's coming next. You must bring the other key, the one I left hidden in your father's watch, and come to me. There's something only you can unlock. I love you. Mother. The letter fell from my hands. The air in the vault turned sharp, cold, heavy. Before I could steady myself, I heard a faint click outside, like metal against tile. Footsteps. Someone else was here. I grabbed the box and stepped out. The hallway stretched empty, but the elevator indicator blinked red. Someone had just gone up. Damien's voice came through my earpiece, tense. Simone, you need to get out, now. I ran. By the time I reached the street, a black sedan screeched around the corner, the same kind I'd seen months ago. A window rolled down, a woman's voice calm, almost affectionate. Simone, darling, it's time we met properly. The car door opened, and I saw her face. Older, elegant, eyes just like mine. Snowflakes blurred the edges of the world. The air was sharp, biting, metallic. The city traffic kept its rhythm. Engines, horns, distant voices. But for me, time fractured. The car door hung open like a wound. She stepped out. Her hair was silver now, swept back in a soft chignon. A long black coat cinched at the waist, gold earrings that glinted with quiet authority, and those eyes, dark, steady, and devastatingly familiar. Simone, she said again, voice smooth as silk pulled over glass. You look just like her. My throat closed. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Who are you? I managed, though the answer was already twisting inside me like a knife I'd known was coming. Her lips curved. Not a smile, exactly. Something between pride and regret. You already know. I shook my head. No. My mother died 24 years ago. She took a single step closer. The cold air carried her perfume, sandalwood and rain. I did die, she said softly. Just not in the way you think. Damien's voice crackled through my earpiece. Simone, walk away. Get in the taxi behind you. Do it now. But I couldn't move. Not yet. Her eyes flicked toward the street corner where Damien's car sat parked, hidden behind a newspaper stand. She smiled faintly. Your detective friend is very loyal, she said. I like him, but this conversation isn't his to hear. Before I could respond, the sedan's rear door opened. A woman in her 30s stepped out, tall, wearing a dark suit, earpiece visible under her hair. Security, professional. The older woman tilted her head. You'll be safe, I promise. But if you want answers, real ones, you have to trust me for 5 minutes. She turned and got back into the car. The door stayed open, waiting. I should have walked away. Every rational cell in my body screamed it. But when she looked at me, when those eyes, my eyes, met mine again, Something broke open inside me that logic couldn't touch. I got in. The car glided through the streets like a shadow. Tinted glass, soft leather, faint scent of roses. Geneva blurred past in a wash of snow and gold light. She didn't speak for several minutes. Neither did I. My hands were trembling, clasped tight in my lap. Finally, she said, "When the explosion happened, I woke up in a hospital in Lyon. The doctors told me everyone thought I was dead. And I decided to let them believe it." "Why?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. "Why let us think you were gone? Why let Dad die thinking you were dead? Why let us grow up alone?" Her eyes flickered. Not guilt, but pain, deep and heavy. Because the people who tried to kill me were still watching. And if they knew I'd survived, they'd come for you and Julian next. I stared at her profile, searching for a lie. But the tremor in her jaw, the way her fingers twisted her wedding band, that wasn't performance. That was truth. "Mark Moreau found me," she continued. "He hid me, changed my name, and when he died, I inherited everything. His company, his contacts. I used them to trace Harrison's network. That's when I learned how deep it went." Her gaze flicked toward me. "By then, you and Julian were grown. I watched from a distance. You had Miles, you looked happy. I told myself the best thing I could do was protect you from afar." I let out a hollow laugh. "Protect me? You left me to marry a man who was working for your enemies." She winced. "That wasn't part of the plan. Harrison's children, Eliza and her brother, moved faster than I expected. They used Miles as a pawn. I found out too late. Too late." I echoed, bitter. Like always, the car slowed at a red light. The driver didn't look back. Snow spiraled outside, catching in the street lamps like floating ash. "Simone," she said quietly, "I didn't come to ask for forgiveness. I came to warn you. Harrison's death didn't end the game. Someone else took control, someone far more dangerous." My chest tightened. "Who?" She hesitated. "Someone inside your brother's company." The light turned green. The car accelerated again. I felt my pulse spike. "Inside Rivers Group? That's impossible. Julian's people are vetted." Her voice cut through, steady and grave. "You think I haven't seen this before? The corruption doesn't start at the top. It starts in the shadows. Assistants, analysts, lawyers, people who file papers, manage accounts, handle data transfers. They've been seeding your company for years." I leaned forward. "Do you know who?" She reached into her coat pocket and slid a small envelope toward me. "These names are the ones I could confirm. One of them is your brother's new financial director." I froze. Julian had just hired a new director 2 months ago. Naomi Ellis, a quiet, meticulous woman who had come highly recommended. "You're wrong," I said, almost pleading. "Naomi's brilliant. She's loyal." A sad smile curved her mouth. "That's what I thought about my best friend once." The car stopped at the edge of Lake Geneva. The snow had turned to mist over the water, silver ripples dancing in the wind. She turned to face me fully for the first time. "I know what it's like to love people who betray you. I know how it feels to rebuild from ashes. But this time, Simone, you have to be faster. Harrison's network isn't gone. It's reborn. And the person funding it now is closer than you think." Her hand touched mine. Warm. Trembling. "Come with me. We can end this together." I searched her eyes, for the woman who'd sung me lullabies, who used to braid my hair, who'd disappeared into fire. And for the first time I saw both, my mother and the ghost she'd become. But something in me still held back. Trust. Once burned doesn't regrow easily. Before I could answer, Damien's voice exploded through my earpiece. "Simone, get out now! They're tracing your location. The car's bugged." A gunshot cracked the air. The back window shattered. The driver swerved hard. I ducked, glass raining over my shoulders. "Get down," the woman shouted, pulling me to the floor. Another shot tore through the side mirror. The sedan spun, tires screaming on wet pavement. Damien's voice, panicked now. "I'm 2 blocks away." "Hold on!" The driver slammed the accelerator, veering down a narrow lane that cut through the fog. Behind us, another car appeared, dark gray, headlights slicing through the mist like knives. "They found us," she muttered. "Who?" I shouted. "The ones who killed Harrison," she said, voice breaking just slightly. "And now they want me." The car jolted as bullets hit the trunk. We swerved again, too fast. The world tilted. Then, impact. A sound like the universe folding in on itself. The seatbelt cut into my chest. Airbags exploded. The car spun twice, slammed sideways into a guardrail, and stopped with a final violent shudder. Silence. I gasped for breath, ears ringing, blood roaring in my head. Through the haze, I turned toward her. The woman who might have been my mother. She was bleeding from the temple, pale but alive. She met my eyes, reached into her coat pocket, and pressed a small metal drive into my hand. "Keep it safe," she whispered. "Everything's on here. The truth, Julian, the company. All of it." Then her head fell forward, sirens in the distance. Damien's car screeching into view. My fingers sticky with blood. And in my palm, the drive that would tear my family open all over again. The paramedics worked fast. Lights, sirens, shouting, all blurred together like a bad dream underwater. I remember the metallic taste of blood, the sting of glass in my hair, and Damien's hands on my shoulders pulling me free of the wreckage. "Simone, look at me."
"Stay awake."
But I wasn't the one fading. The woman beside me, my maybe mother, my ghost, was slipping under. She opened her eyes one last time. "The drive," she whispered. "Don't let it fall into their hands." Then her pulse stilled beneath my fingers. Just like that. She was gone again. And this time, I wasn't sure she'd come back. The hospital released me the next day with a concussion and a body full of bruises. The car had been towed, the wreck sealed off by Swiss authorities. But by the time Damien checked, the body was gone. Vanished. No record, no autopsy, no death certificate. The morgue never received her. It was as if she had evaporated into thin air. Only the drive remained, a sleek silver USB no bigger than a thumbnail. But when Damien plugged it into a secure offline laptop, the screen filled with encrypted folders, hundreds of them, labeled with familiar names: Rivers Group Internal, Moreau Holdings, Harrison Corp., Naomi Ellis, Project Lotus. My pulse hammered. "Naomi," I whispered. "She's in there." Damien's brow furrowed. "Let's see what she's hiding." He ran a decryption program, fingers flying. Line by line, the code cracked open, and the files spilled like water. Invoices, offshore accounts. Transaction trails, all leading back to Rivers Group, and at the center of it all, Project Lotus, a secret investment program under Julian's signature. Millions funneled into a company called Lazara Tech, registered in Panama. I blinked. Julian doesn't have a project like that. Damien glanced at me, grim. He does now, and it's bleeding your company dry. We spent the next 48 hours buried in documents. Coffee cups stacked like chess pieces, curtains drawn. The deeper we dug, the uglier it got. "Look at this," Damien said, turning the screen toward me. "Naomi Ellis filed these contracts 2 weeks before the wedding. They redirect corporate profits through dummy shell firms, all linked to Harrison's old network. She's laundering money under Julian's nose." I swallowed hard. "She's setting him up." He nodded. "Exactly. If this goes public, Julian will look complicit. He'll take the fall." And then, at the bottom of the final folder, one last video file blinked open, labeled, "For Simone." The screen flickered. A recording. The same woman from the car, my mother, alive, speaking directly into the camera. "If you're watching this, then I failed to reach you in time. Simone, there's something you need to understand. Project Lotus isn't just about money. It's about control. Someone is trying to recreate what Harrison started, but on a global scale. And the person leading it now is closer to you than anyone else. The video cut. Off static. Then one final line of text appeared across the screen, white. Letters on black. Trust no one, especially Julian. Stared at the words until my reflection blurred in the laptop screen. No, I whispered. No, that's impossible. Damien looked at me carefully. Simone. I shook my head. Julian saved me. He planned the takedown. He was the one who exposed Miles and Eliza, which gave him control. Damien said quietly. Control of the company. Control of the narrative. His logic was sound. Terrifyingly sound, but this was Julian. My brother. The man who held me when our parents died. The man who wiped my tears and whispered, "The main act is about to begin." The same man who said he knew everything before it happened. My stomach twisted. That phrase, "the main act," used to comfort me. Now it sounded like a threat I'd never recognized. That night, I went to the office. Everyone had gone home. Only the city lights glowed through the tall windows. Julian's desk was immaculate. Too immaculate. Every pen aligned, every document squared. But in the bottom drawer, under a layer of file folders, I found a small black notebook labeled Lazara. Inside, handwritten notes in Julian's neat script, meeting dates, payment codes, and a single phrase circled 3 times. Phase 2, Geneva activation. The date beside it? Tomorrow. Damien's voice came through my phone when I called him, breath quick. You need to leave. If he's behind this, I'm not leaving until I know the truth, I said. If Julian's innocent, I'll prove it. And if he's not, then you'll be walking into the lion's den. Maybe, I said, but I'm not the same woman I was. The next morning, the boardroom at Rivers Group filled with executives for what Julian called a strategic restructuring. Naomi Ellis sat at his right. I slipped into the back, unnoticed, the flash drive hidden in my pocket. Julian stood at the head of the table, every inch the calm, brilliant CEO the press adored. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, Project Lotus enters its next phase today. A click on his remote. The screen lit up with graphs and numbers. Projections glowing like promises. I stepped forward. You mean the phase where you sell our company to ghost investors in Panama? Every head turned, gasps, whispers. Julian froze, just for a fraction of a second, but I saw it. That tiny glitch in his mask. Simone, he said, voice like ice. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same. I tossed the flash drive onto the table. It clattered against the glass. Recognize that? Mom left it for me. Naomi's expression flickered. Fear, then fury. Julian's eyes darkened. She's dead, he said quietly. Funny, I shot back. She told me the same thing about you. Security moved. Damien burst through the door at the same time. Badge raised, gun drawn. Federal investigation, he barked. Everyone stepped back. The room erupted in chaos. Naomi bolted toward the exit. 2 agents grabbed her. Julian didn't move. He just looked at me, calm, unreadable. Then slowly, he smiled. You think you've won? He said softly. You have no idea what you've unleashed. Then tell me, I demanded. What is Project Lotus? He leaned forward, voice barely above a whisper. Lotus wasn't my idea, Simone. It was hers, I froze. Whose? Our mother. The words hit like thunder. She created Lotus before she died, he said. Not to destroy, but to control what Harrison couldn't. To rebuild our family's power. I only finished what she started. He turned to the agents, hands raised. You'll never stop it. It's already live. The lights flickered. The building systems rebooted. All screens flashed white, then filled with a symbol I recognized instantly. A white lotus. And underneath, a single message. Welcome to Phase 3. The White Lotus glowed across every screen in the building. Walls, laptops, phones, the giant digital display behind Julian, executives whispered. Security froze. The air thickened with static and fear. Then the symbol blinked once, twice, and the voice of a woman, calm, elegant, haunting, filled the room. My children, if you're hearing this, the game is already over. My heart stuttered. That voice. My mother's voice. Gasps rippled through the room. Damien's hand dropped slowly from his holster. Even Julian, the unshakable Julian, went still. I created Project Lotus to protect what was left of us, she continued. Not the company, us, our name, our blood. I knew one day the same corruption that killed your father would come for you both, so I built something bigger than money, a failsafe, an awakening. The lights dimmed until her holographic image shimmered on the main screen. A pre-recorded message. Years old, her face both familiar and otherworldly. Julian? Simone, I know you don't understand yet, but the world you live in runs on lies hidden inside power. Harrison's death wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a network built to replace me, and you, my children, are its final test. Julian's voice cracked. Mother, what did you do? I did what you never could, she said softly. I made peace with the monster. Suddenly, the screen split in half, one side showing global maps, the other cascading with data streams, firewalls, corporate logos flickering in and out of focus. Rivers Group, Moreau Holdings, Golden Crest, Lazara Tech. Phase 3, her voice said, is not about wealth. It's about control. The network is live now, self-sustaining, autonomous. If either of you tries to destroy it, you destroy each other. My pulse thundered. What does that mean? I whispered. Julian turned toward me, face pale, realization dawning in his eyes. It means, he said, we're both wired into it. Damien looked at him sharply. Wired? You're saying? Julian nodded. Every key executive account. Every biometric authorization. Our DNA access codes are embedded in the encryption. If one of us is removed, the system collapses. He turned back to the screen. You built a prison, Mother. No, her voice replied, softer now. A balance. One pure heart, one ruthless mind. Together you can save it. Apart, it consumes you both. And then, the hologram smiled. Goodbye, my loves. The screens went black. For a heartbeat, no one moved. No sound but the faint hum of the city outside. Then Julian looked at me, eyes bright with something wild, dangerous, almost devotional. She gave it to us, he murmured. The Empire. The power. The future. Julian stopped. He stepped closer. Don't you see, Simone? This is what she wanted. You and me, together, unstoppable. The old world burns and we rise from it. He reached for my hand, and for a split second, I saw the boy he used to be. The brother who held my hand through nightmares. Then I saw what was left of him now. A man shaped by ghosts. Power and too much grief. I pulled my hand back. I'm not building an empire out of her ashes. I'm ending this. His jaw tightened. Then I'll stop you. Before anyone could blink, alarms blared. The system had triggered a security lock. Bulletproof doors slammed shut. Julian typed furiously at the console, overriding firewalls, code flashing across screens like lightning. Damien grabbed my arm. Simone, we've got 30 seconds before lockdown. What are you doing? Finishing it, I said. I sprinted to the central server terminal, plugged in the drive my mother had given me, and hit run. Julian turned, eyes wide. Simone, no! The screens exploded with data. Encryption streams unraveling, code rewriting itself. The lotus symbol collapsing into digital fire. Override initiated. Source ID. S. Rivers Julian lunged toward me. Damien intercepted, tackling him to the ground. The building trembled. Lights flickered, and then silence. The lotus vanished. Every monitor went dark. Project Lotus was gone. Smoke curled from the servers. Damien stood, panting. You did it. It's over. I looked at Julian. He was on his knees, staring at the blank screen like a man watching his god die. You don't understand, he whispered. You didn't end it. You triggered it. Before I could ask what he meant, my phone buzzed. A single notification flashed on the screen. Transfer complete. New account holder, S. Rivers. Damien leaned over my shoulder. Simone. That's billions. My hands shook. I didn't do this. Julian laughed. Soft, broken. Yes, you did. You were always her favorite. The system chose you. I stared at him, realization dawning like slow poison. The balance my mother talked about. One pure heart, one ruthless mind, and was gone. She had chosen, and now I was the one in control. Weeks later, the world moved on. The scandal rocked global markets. Rivers Group rebranded, and Julian disappeared. No trace, no goodbye. Some said he fled. Some said he didn't survive the fallout. I didn't correct them. At night, I sat in my office, the city glittering below, and stared at the lotus symbol flickering faintly on my private monitor. It shouldn't exist. I deleted every trace. But somehow, it returned, ghost code, living on in the corners of the system. Then one night, a message appeared beneath it. Hello, Simone. Are you ready for Phase 4? The cursor blinked. Then my phone buzzed. An encrypted call. Unknown number, I answered. Silence at first. Then, a voice I hadn't heard since Geneva. Hello, my love, said my mother. I told you. The game never ends. Click. Screen fades to black. Lotus blooms again. White. Endless. Unstoppable.